Thresholds in dog training. Have you ever heard a dog trainer use the term over threshold and wondered what it meant? A threshold is the point or level at which something begins or changes. That's the standard dictionary definition. But the interesting thing is that there are actually 3 physiological and psychological thresholds that are important when we are training our animals. The first threshold we need to know about is the sensory threshold, as defined in psychology. Here's a definition. The faintest detectable stimulus of any given type is the absolute threshold for that type of stimulus. Have you ever heard the term threshold of hearing? Right now, during this slide, I'm playing a high-frequency hum. Can you hear it? If not, it is under your threshold of hearing for that frequency. If you can hear it, it's over the threshold. The sensory threshold is involved when our dogs are able to see, hear, or smell something new in their environment. Another threshold is the threshold of reactivity or fear. This is the one people usually mean when they say their dog is over threshold. The most general definition of this threshold is the point at which the sympathetic nervous system responds when the animal is afraid. This causes chemical changes in the body and overt behaviors usually falling into the categories of fight, flight, or freeze. Dogs who are aggressing are generally over the threshold of fear. Here are 2 other examples of dogs over that threshold. She's panting, but it's not hot. She's hypervigilant. Trying to escape or hide. And trembling. This dog is practically paralyzed with fear. But there's one more threshold, and it's located behaviorally between the other 2. If one threshold is where the dog sees something, and another is where the dog freaks out about it, what's in between? The point at which the thing becomes aversive, where the dog starts to be uncomfortable with it. This could be called the threshold of stimulus aversiveness. Here is an example of a dog in a situation where a stimulus is over the threshold of aversiveness. In other words, she's stressed about something in her environment, but so far she's holding it together. She repeatedly licks her lips and looks behind her. She's responding to my cues, but she's worried about the noises. In my webinar on thresholds in dog training, I made diagrams of these thresholds and discussed where each of our common training protocols falls among the thresholds. Here's a summary of those diagrams. The black line represents distance from or intensity of the stimulus. All 3 of the protocols discussed here take place over the threshold of stimulus perception, since the animal has to perceive the stimulus to learn about it. The combination of desensitization and counter-conditioning is correctly practiced under the threshold of stimulus aversiveness. Protocols that use negative reinforcement straddle the threshold of stimulus aversiveness. The animal is exposed to the stimulus at an aversive level, and escape from the aversive level of the stimulus is used as a negative reinforcer for appropriate behaviors. The closest proximity to the aversive stimulus may be more or less than I show here. The important point is that negative reinforcement protocols have to cross the threshold of stimulus aversiveness to work. Flooding takes place at or above the threshold of fear. The thresholds aren't always spaced out nicely. For example, if the threshold of perception and the threshold of aversiveness are very close together in space, a trainer using desensitization counter-conditioning would probably not use distance as the initial way to keep the stimulus non-aversive. The trainer would probably use a different form of the stimulus first. This configuration of the thresholds is probably common with wild animals. Likewise, if the threshold of stimulus aversiveness and the threshold of fear are very close together, a negative reinforcement protocol would be very difficult to perform without risking flooding. Finally, the thresholds move because of environmental factors, the animal's stamina and psychological state, and of course, as we train. This is what we hope will happen as we train. For more information on thresholds, please see the links to my webinar and blog in the video description. Thanks for watching!